Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Morning.
Logan Robert Gould.
Mr. Gold, you are here today on a South Tucson warrant from February of this year and criminal damage. There is a $1,000 cash bond requested on that warrant. It's my understanding that you also have other felonies going on. Is that the case?
I've already been sentenced and I've been sitting in the jail since then.
Okay, when were you sentenced?
I was sentenced October 24th of this year.
You get some additional jail time, or what was your sentence? Okay. And was there any additional jail time with IPS?
60 days, which I've already spent.
So I need to tell you, sir, that you do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. If I release you on this South Tucson case, you're going to be on IPS. You have to go to the court date that I give you. This South Tucson case is not going to go away. You have to get that resolved. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so I am going to release you on your South Tucson case, so that's not something that continues to hold you on your felony matter. You're not to have any contact with the victim and don't return to the incident location. Do you understand those additional conditions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next hearing at South Tucson City Court is January 14th, 2025 at 10 o'clock in the morning. You
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. So I'm still supposed to spend time until the 23rd of January in custody, waiting for extradition.
Okay, so you have something else going on, not just that. All right.
Yes, I'm waiting for the extradition of California.
Okay. So that's going to change things. So let's do this a little bit differently. All right, so on the South Tucson case, I'm going to appoint Michael Vaughn to represent you. I am going to hold you on a $100 cash bond on that case. So you will stay in jail here until your South Tucson case gets resolved. Your next hearing is now going to be January 2nd at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it should be via video, much like you're doing today. Jail, you guys have a feed for South Tucson, right? Anyone?
I'm not, Your Honor.
Okay. I think South Tucson has a feed so that you can do that. Talk with your attorney, Mr. Vaughn, whenever he gets a hold of you. But your in custody date for the South Tucson City Court is January 2nd, 2025 at 10 o'clock. It sounds like you are. Go ahead.
So I already have a attorney. His name's Matthew Mesmer. He works in the legal division.
So,
Legal
right, but that's for your felony case.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mesmer doesn't practice in South Tucson City Court. So I have to give you a different attorney that practices within South Tucson City Court. So that's why I'm giving you Michael Vaughn for your city court case. Okay, so I don't know if he'll be in touch with you given the holiday before your hearing on the 2nd at 10 a.m. But at some point he should be in touch with you. If not by then, soon thereafter, before the end of the week. And you can talk with him. So you'll be held here until you see the South Tucson City Court judge. And then once that's done, hopefully you can get that case resolved and be on your way to whatever's next.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Right. If for some reason you do end up posting bond, I don't think you will, given what you've told me. But if that happens, you're going to need to appear at South Tucson City Court now on January 2nd at 10 a.m. Okay.
Okay.
Right. You're all done.
Thank you.
Who do we have from the public defender's office this morning? I can't see your face.
Can you see me now?
I can. Tell me your name.
Esther Kelly.
Mr. Kelly. Good morning, Miss Kelly.
Good morning.
All right, ma'am, tell me your name.
Wendy.
What's your last name, Wendy?
Scott.
What's your middle name?
Haley.
You are here today on charges of first-degree murder, armed robbery, aggravated robbery, theft of means of transportation, and arson of an occupied structure. There was a warrant for these charges that was issued for you out of Justice Court on December 27th for these offenses that happened on December 24th. This is the time for your initial appearance. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release. The amount on the bond was $1 million, or sorry, the amount on the warrant was for $1 million. State, did you want to be heard further? And I've read the interim on this, so just your recommendation as to conditions, sir.
Your Honor, the state moves for the $1 million. Under all of the circumstances, it is the most appropriate amount.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, Miss Scott is only 16 years old, so she's extremely young. She has no prior felony convictions. She's a lifelong resident of Tucson and has ties to the community. She's currently living with her mom, and she's engaged in some services through a local group in the community. So she does have some positive pro-social support in the community. I'd ask that you set the bond at $250,000. Obviously, at 16 years old, she does not have a job and has no ability to pay.
I am going to set the bond at $500,000. That is going to be cash or secured. If you post that bond, Ms. Scott, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you do get released, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. You are not to have any contact with the victim's family in this case or any of the other victims, and you're not to return to any of the incident locations. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next hearing is going to be a preliminary hearing on January 10th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not occur. You are responsible for showing up at all future hearings, or a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody, you'll be transported or appear via video, much like you're doing here today, for your next hearing. But if you do post bond, it's important to stay in contact with your attorney and appear at all future court dates. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yeah.
All right, you're all done for today, Ms. Scott.
Your Honor, was this public defender appointed?
Yes.
Thank you.
That seems strange, right? Okay. Oh, got it. I see why. Thank you. Hi, tell me your name.
Bianca Teresa Luque.
Miss Luque, you are here this morning on, looks like a review hearing for a Nogales matter. Looks like you have a felony hold and some other things going on. Do you still have a felony matter that you're being held for here at the jail?
No, I'm not being held on anything. Actually, I'm already set to a bed tomorrow. Hopefully, if you guys, do possibly drop the bond, I plan on doing everything by phone and then while I'm in rehab.
So did you get sentenced in your felony case, Miss Luque?
Yes, on all of them.
Okay, what was your sentence?
Probation.
Okay, and when were you sentenced to probation?
On the 10th and the 12th. of December.
Okay. And did you get any additional jail time in addition to probation?
Just the time that I'm doing in order to wait for my bed. But that's pretty much it.
Right, was it 60 days? Have you seen anyone from probation yet?
Yes, I already talked to my probation officer. She plans on trying to come tomorrow if everything goes good today.
Okay, so I will then release you on your Nogales Justice Court matter at this time, so that you can be released, but you're going to have to show up at your Nogales hearing.
In person?
Yes, so talk with your probation officer. There should be an attorney appointed for you in Nogales Justice Court. Let me see. I'm not going to have the ability to give you a number very quickly, but you will need to contact Nogales Justice Court once you get released. So if you go to residential and that's where you have to be, call them and change the date that I'm about to give you, okay?
Alrighty. Thank you, Your Honor.
So releasing you on this, we're not going to set any future hearings because you should be out of custody. Actually, I do need to set a review hearing. So we're going to revisit this matter on January 14th, 2024 at 9 o'clock. So if you are still in jail for whatever reason, then we'll revisit this matter for the Nogales Justice Court on the bond that was originally $500. But since I'm releasing you on that bond today, hopefully you'll be out by then. Contact Nogales Justice Court so that you can get a court date down there and get that matter taken care of. And then if for any reason you are still in custody, they haven't found a bed for you, then you'll be seen again here just to make sure we don't lose track of this case, all right?
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, you're all done, Miss Luque.
Have a good day.
Hi, tell me your name.
Lexi Smith.
Hang on just a second. Hang on, ma'am, I need to get some information. I think we were told that you were already gone on your out-of-county matter, so give us just a second. Mhm. She did not, because she's sitting here, so. All right. All right, so it looks like you were being seen today on a Graham County Superior Court case, and you also have felony matters here in Pima County. So this was a time for a review hearing for you to be seen on that Graham County case. What's going on with your felony matter?
For here,
Yes.
they reinstated my probation and, I was supposed to be let out on the 26th, but I had the $100 bond. I was supposed to be let out to rehab on the 26th, but because of the $100 bond from Grant County, I'm still here. But I'm back on probation and I'm going into treatment.
So what I'm going to do is release you on your Graham County case. today. So that's no longer going to be holding you. So whenever probation has bed space or whatever's happening with your probation, then you'll be released. So there'll no longer be that hold.
Thank you.
Okay, are going to have to contact Graham County Superior Court in order to get a new hearing date. If you don't
Okay.
do that, then you're just going to wind up with another warrant and
Okay.
find yourself back in custody and in trouble with your probation officer. So make
Okay.
sure you call Graham County Superior Court, just ask them to give you a court date so that you can get that taken care of. All right, Ms. Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're all done for today.
Thank you.
So so if you can just check that box, we'll be good.
No. You go, great. Yeah, you take it. Yeah. Please, 1 second.
Hi, tell me your name.
Eric Andrew, let's do the blood engineer.
All right, you are here today on multiple matters that we need to talk about. You have a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court for domestic violence assault for an offense that occurred back in 2019. You're also here on a warrant out of another jurisdiction. We'll talk about that one in a second. That has a $250 warrant amount on it. And then you are also here today for a drug paraphernalia charge out of Tucson City Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I don't know who just joined Teams. Chris, I need you to mute your phone, please. Can you mute her for me? There we go. She's muted. Thank you. All right. This is also the time for your arraignment on the Tucson City Court charge with drug paraphernalia. So I will tell you that you are presumed innocent, and I'm going to enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf for that charge. Let's talk about your justice court case first. I am going to impose a bond in that one. And the information I have, sir, is you also have a DOC hold. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to impose a bond on your justice court matter of $250. That's going to be a cash bond. I'm going to appoint Carlos Betancourt to represent you. He'll be in touch with you, and we're going to set a hearing for you on January 2nd, 2025 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll likely still be in custody, so the jail will have you appear via video, much like you're doing here today, so that you can get that justice court matter resolved. If for some reason you do get out, you need to make sure that you show up at that date and time or they'll issue a warrant for you. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. Your other matter is out of Stanfield Justice Court. And on that one, that's the bond that is for $250. So I am going to impose that bond at this time. That's going to be cash or secured. Once you get all of your matters here in Tucson taken care of, what'll happen is the jail will contact Stanfield Justice Court and let them know that they either need to come get you or you'll see another judge for a review hearing date. And once you come back here, if for some reason they haven't come to pick you up, you'll be released and then go off to DOC. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
And then we need to talk about your city court case for drug paraphernalia. On that case, I am going to impose a $100 cash bond. And we're going to set a video review hearing date for you on January 10th, 2025 at 1:45. That will be in front of Judge Maldonado. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. That's going to give you an opportunity to be seen by Tucson City Court on that charge. And once you've got that one taken care of, then you won't be held on that one anymore either. Someone from the city public defender's office should be contacting you. As to your city court matter, sir, if for some reason, again, you do get released, I don't anticipate that happening, but if you do and you fail to appear for your hearing on January 10th at 1:45, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward in your absence. They could set additional hearings, including a trial. And if you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could lose your right to appeal. Do you understand all of that?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
That's all.
Hi, tell me your name.
Eric Eugene Fresco.
Mr. Pressner, you are here today on a charge of domestic violence assault. It is a misdemeanor offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It also appears that, is it Liza? Are you on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. So I've had a chance to review information from pretrial services that tells me that you are fine having contact with Mr. Presnar and that he's welcome to return home. Is that still your position or has something changed?
No, that's correct.
All right. So, Mr. Presnar, I am inclined to release you today if you promise to show up at a hearing that I give you in the future. Will you do that?
Yes.
And your conditions of release are that you not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do you understand that as well?
Yes.
I am going to release you today. Your next hearing is going to be January 30th, 2025 at 10:30 in the morning. That's going to be at Pima County Justice Court. You do have to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
All right, Liza, was there anything else you wanted me to know about his conditions of release? He'll be released later today. The two of you are allowed to continue to have contact, just no more domestic violence incidents.
I understand that. Thank you. I guess I'll get a call if he needs to be picked up.
Yes.
I don't. Okay.
Okay,
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
you're all done, sir.
Two. See?
Hi, tell me your name.
My name is Hua Hong Tu, also known as Ray Hong Tu.
All right, Mr. Tu, you are here today on a charge of domestic violence, disorderly conduct. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is a misdemeanor offense. We're here to talk about your conditions of release. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, and we do have Maria on the phone with us. Maria, can you hear me? You're actually on Teams. Can you hear me? You need to unmute yourself. You need to do *6 on your phone so I can hear you. Did you hit *6? Because I'm still showing that you're muted. On your Microsoft Teams, is there a button that allows you to unmute? She may not be on the phone. If she's on a computer, there should be an actual button that shows that little microphone that's down there. And if you hit it, it will unmute. I mean, if she, who's on the phone with you?
Is this a person who needed Spanish as well? She needs a Spanish interpreter for the victim. Her friend is calling and let me know that she wants to try to hang up and call back because she's can't hear you.
Well,
Okay, so she can hang up if she calls right back in.
Yeah, just hang up and call.
Madam Interpreter, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Your Honor, I can. Good morning.
Morning. We're gonna wait and see if we can get Maria to call back in on a different phone, and then it sounds like she needs the interpreter.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me now? Okay, I can't hear you. I still can't hear you.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Is this Maria?
Yes.
Okay, so Maria, I had heard that you needed the interpreter, but it sounds like you're able to understand everything okay.
And in some instances, I may need some help.
Okay.
'Cause- yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you the information that I have from pretrial services is that the two of you reside together. You're going to stay at home, and while he's not you don't want him coming back home, but you're okay having contact with him. Is that what you still want?
Because of the kids we share.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's what you would like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can do that today. I will release him today, but he is going to have to find some other place to live. So Mr. Two, do you have some other place that you can live or stay until there's a future court date?
currently do not have any. I really want to be with my family.
You cannot go home. So if I release you, you're not allowed to go back home. You're going to be allowed to continue to have contact with Maria for purposes of making arrangements for your children, but you're not going to be able to go back home. So you can get a hotel, you can stay somewhere, but you're not going to be allowed to return to them today. The court may change that in the future, but that's not going to happen today.
Understand. Thank
So
you.
will you find some other place to go?
I will do my best to find. Yes, I will. I will.
All right, I am going to release you then today on your promise to appear at a future court date. You are not allowed to return to where Maria is living at this time. Establish an alternative address, as we've talked about. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. The two of you may have contact for purposes of communicating about your children. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes. Your Honor, question. Right now, my income is not enough to sustain rent because we are renting. We're renting this place together. I mean, he's the one paying. As I said, my income cannot afford it. So moving forward until the next hearing, he will have to pay the rent.
So I'm
Cool.
not, my sole purpose today is to talk about conditions of release for him. I am not here to resolve any other financial issues or anything like that. If you contact the Victim Services Division of the Pima County Attorney's Office, they can provide you with resources in the community that may be able to assist you with that. The two of you are going to be able to have contact, so you can talk with him about, rent and that sort of thing. But there's nothing I can do today other than set conditions of release for whether he gets whether he stays in jail or gets out of jail, and the conditions I've just imposed.
Okay, moving forward, if he's at the place where we live, what can happen? Like what should I do?
If he comes back to your residence, you should call the police because he's not allowed to be there. And then he will be in violation of his conditions of release, and that could put him back in jail as one consequence.
Okay.
Okay?
Just want to let the president that right now what I care the most is about our children. I have a newborn. He's shouting, he's yelling. It's putting all of us under a lot of stress, anxiety. So just want to let I want to just say that, and that I don't know if you can order this, but he should go to rehab, because I gave him so many opportunities for our kids, for our family, so many opportunities, but like the fact that he's shouting and yelling in public places, to me, he's out of his mind. That is a concerning part of it. So I would give him, if this were the last opportunity I give him to change for good, I would, but I don't know if that could go along with a rehab. I don't know about laws, but like rehab order or something similar like that.
So, ma'am, Mr. 2 is hearing everything that you're saying, but I cannot order him into rehab today. Again, today is just about what conditions I'm placing on him with being released. You'll have the opportunity to go to that court hearing on January 30th as well. And you have the right to be heard throughout this process. And again, if you contact the Victim Services Division of the County Attorney's Office, they'll also be able to provide you with some resources, okay?
So if I live in Maricopa County, how does that work? So do I have to come here to Tucson?
Yes, but many times you can appear via video or by phone. So you wouldn't actually need to physically be here if you don't want to be. He's going to have to physically be here for his hearing, but you do not.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Maria. I appreciate it. Mr. 2, your next hearing, January 30th, 2025 at 10:30. That's going to be at Pima County Justice Court. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of your release paperwork that will allow you to see the court date that I just gave you so that you have it in writing, as well as the address for Pima County Justice Court and where you need to appear. You understand all of that?
Understand, thank you.
You understand the consequences if you fail to appear, that they can issue a warrant for your arrest.
Well, I will attend.
Okay, you're all done.
So, Your Honor, I'm so sorry. Just one last question. But if he gets released today, if he's doing that, what can I? So, his car is in the hotel. His keys are in the hotel. His phone, everything. I just wonder how will he be brought here back by some police or?
No, he's going to have to figure that out when he gets released, ma'am. So he's going to have to figure out how to get to his car and all of the other things.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're all done for today.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Mr. 2.
Okay. Two.
Hi, tell me your name.
Victor Escape Jr.
Mr. Escap, you are here today on a matter out of Tucson City Court. It looks like you failed to comply with proof of a DUI case that you had back in 2022. So it looks like they need some information from you that you haven't provided yet. You have the right to remain silent on this. Anything you say can and will be used against you. If I release you today on this, will you promise to provide proof and go to a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
You being held on anything else right now?
No,
All right. I am going to release you on this case, but you're going to have to provide proof of whatever it is Tucson City Court needs. I think it may be jail time that you needed to do. And it does look like I saw something in your file where you sent them information back in 2023 asking to resolve your matter. So I do know that that's at least in the city court file. So hopefully you still have a copy of that, okay? Your
Yep.
your next hearing at Tucson City Court is going to be February 3rd, 2025 at 9 o'clock in the morning in front of Judge Verena. You do need to appear at that date and time and be prepared to provide proof of what you were lacking, or they'll issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're all done for today.
So most of the boat, like, 8:30, something like that. How does that day? Sister posted a $250 bond.
I don't know anything about that because I don't have a bond on you. I'm releasing you on this. So maybe there was a $250 bond. We're not showing anything from Tucson City Court, but you don't have to pay that, at least on this case, because I've just released you. All you have to do is show up. Okay?
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
You're all done. Hi, tell me your name. Mr. Todd, you are here today on charges of domestic violence, disorderly conduct, and criminal damage, also domestic violence related offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is the time to set your conditions of release on this matter. This is also the time for your arraignment on these new misdemeanor charges. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. It does look like your girlfriend has indicated that you two are not going to continue to live together, but she's okay having contact with you. So if I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
And will you promise not to commit any further acts of domestic violence?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date at Tucson City Court is going to be January 28th, 2025 at 3 o'clock. That's going to be in front of Judge Millian. I am releasing you today on your promise to appear. You and Miss Stutz can continue to have contact with each other, just no further incidents of domestic violence. You do need to appear at that January 28th hearing. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of your court paperwork, and that will have the date and time and the location of where you need to appear. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence if you don't show up. They could set a trial in your absence, and if you're convicted and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could also lose your right to appeal this particular case. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done, Mr. Todd.
Oh.
Hi, tell me your name.
Dana Google.
Ms. Vogel, you are here today on a charge of domestic violence, disorderly conduct. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is the time to set your conditions of release on this charge. It is a misdemeanor offense out of Tucson City Court. This is also your arraignment on that matter. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. It looks like the victim in this case was your son. If I release you today, I'm going to order that you not have any contact with him until further order of the court. Are you two living together?
Yeah, we're both on the lease, but I can leave.
Okay.
The only problem is I have a runaway as well. So it's kind of nice to be home in case the police come, but I can go somewhere. It's not even a big deal.
Okay. So I will release you then today, Ms. Vogel. Your next court date is going to be February 6th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning, and that's going to be in front of Judge Verena at Tucson City Court. Don't commit any further acts of domestic violence. At this time, you're not to have any contact with your son who's listed as the victim in this case. That would be Isaac.
Okay.
Do you need to
Understand.
return? Do you need to return to the house to get any of your belongings?
I'll get my car.
Okay, so I'm gonna check a box on your conditions of release. When you get released later today, you'll get a copy of this paperwork. The box I'm checking says that you can return to the house one time with law enforcement to get your belongings.
Okay.
So you
Thank
just
you very
need-
much.
You just need to either call 911 or go to a nearby police station and show them this order.
Okay.
Just don't go to the house and sit out in front of the house and wait for them. Call and let them know that you have an order to return to get your property. They're very familiar with this. They'll meet you somewhere and you guys will go to the residence together to get.
Yeah. I can go to El Rio.
Okay. All right. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I do.
And your next hearing date, as I've indicated, is February 6th. If you don't show up at that date and time, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing and set subsequent hearings, including a trial in your absence. If you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done, Ms. Vogel.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, the next two are going to be as Spanish speakers.
Okay.
Your Honor, did I hear correctly? The Spanish speakers are next?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Hola, ¿me dice su nombre, por favor?
Jorge Luis Chaparro.
Jorge Luis Chaparro.
You are here today, sir, on charges of possession of a dangerous drug, possession of drug paraphernalia, burglary, and theft of means of transportation.
Señor, el día de hoy está compareciendo por posesión de una droga peligrosa, accesorios de droga también, entrada ilegal y robo de un medio de transporte.
This is the time for your initial appearance where we set conditions of release on this case.
Y usted está aquí en la comparecencia inicial para fijarle condiciones de liberación.
You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Usted tiene el derecho de permanecer callado. Todo lo que diga puede y será utilizado en su contra.
You have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for this hearing here today.
Usted tiene derecho a ser representado por un abogado y sí le voy a asignar al defensor público para que lo represente. Y para la audiencia del día de hoy, usted tiene un abogado sentado enseguida de usted.
I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services.
Ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información que me dio los servicios previos al juicio.
And the Bureau of Immigration and Custom Enforcement has placed a hold on you at this time. So regardless of what we do on this case here today, you're going to be held until that matter is resolved.
Bueno, el Buró de Inmigración y Control de Aduanas puso una orden de detención en contra suya. Entonces, sin importar lo que ordene yo en este caso el día de hoy, usted va a seguir detenido hasta que se resuelva ese caso de inmigración.
I've had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release.
Yo ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar las recomendaciones del fiscal para las condiciones de liberación.
Counsel, my inclination is a $2,500 cash or secured bond released to pretrial services if he's able to post that bond.
Y dice la juez, fiscal, estoy considerando fijarle una fianza en efectivo de $2,500 y liberarlo si paga la fianza a los servicios previos al juicio.
Does the state need
Your
to
Honor, the
refer-
state has no objection to that.
Y el fiscal dice, su señoría, yo no me opongo a eso.
Ms. Kelly?
Your Honor, it appears that he has no criminal history, so I was requesting a $1,000 bond for time credit.
Y dice la abogada Kelly, sentada enseguida de usted, que ella solicita que se le fije una fianza de $1,000, siendo que usted no tiene antecedentes perito por el tiempo que ha estado detenido.
I am going to impose a bond of $2,500. That's cash or secured. If you post that bond, you'll be released to pretrial services.
Señor, le voy a fijar la fianza de $2,500 en efectivo o en garantía. Si usted deposita la fianza, va a quedar liberado y bajo la supervisión de los servicios previos al juicio.
And that will be if your immigration matter gets resolved.
Y eso es si el asunto de inmigración se resuelve.
If you get released to pretrial services, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms.
Bueno, y si queda liberado a los servicios previos al juicio, a usted debe de seguir cualquier tratamiento o monitoreo que le indiquen los servicios previos al juicio y no puede consumir ningún tipo de bebida alcohólica ni droga ilícita, ni tampoco poseer ningún tipo de arma de fuego.
You're not allowed to have any contact with the victims in this case, and don't go near the incident location.
Y usted no puede tener ningún tipo de contacto con las víctimas en este caso, ni tampoco regresar al lugar de los hechos.
Your next hearing in this case is a preliminary hearing on January 10th, 2025 at 1:30.
Su próxima audiencia es una audiencia preliminar el día 10 de enero del 2025 a la 1:30 de la tarde.
That hearing may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future hearings or a warrant can issue for your arrest.
Bueno, esa audiencia quizás se lleve a cabo y quizás no, señor, pero usted tiene la responsabilidad de presentarse a todas sus audiencias o se puede emitir una orden de arresto para que lo vuelvan a detener.
Do you understand all of your conditions of release, Mr. Chaparro?
Señor Chaparro, ¿le quedó claro todas las condiciones de liberación que le acabo de imponer?
Sí.
Yes.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for any hearings?
¿Y usted le quedó claro las consecuencias a las que enfrenta si es que no se presenta usted a sus próximas audiencias?
Sí.
Yes.
You're all done for today.
Ya terminó por hoy, gracias.
Sí, usted.
Hi, tell me your name.
Hola, ¿me puede decir su nombre?
José Armando Gutiérrez.
José Armando Gutiérrez.
You are here today, sir, on a charge of forgery.
Señor, el día de hoy usted está aquí por falsificación.
You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Usted tiene el derecho de permanecer callado. Todo lo que diga puede y será utilizado en su contra.
You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. I'm appointing the public defender's office, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing.
Usted tiene derecho a ser representado por un abogado y sí le voy a asignar al defensor público para que lo represente. Y para la audiencia de hoy, usted tiene un abogado sentado enseguida de usted.
I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services.
Ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información que me proporcionó la agencia de los servicios previos al juicio.
What they've told me is that you do have a hold placed on you by the Bureau of Immigration and Custom Enforcement.
Lo que me han dicho es que usted tiene una orden de retención de la Agencia de Migración y Control de Aduanas.
So regardless of what we do for your conditions of release on this felony matter, you will be held until the immigration matter is resolved.
Entonces, sin importar las condiciones de liberación que yo ordene en este delito grave, usted va a seguir detenido hasta que el asunto de migración se resuelva.
It's the court's inclination to impose a $1,000 cash or secured bond on this matter and release to pretrial services if everything gets resolved.
Bueno, entonces es la consideración del juez fijarle una fianza de $1,000 en efectivo o en garantía y liberarlo bajo la supervisión previa al juicio, si es que todo se resuelve.
I did review the state's recommendation. They asked for a $3,000 bond on this one. Mr. Poston, did
Y
you
yo-
want to be heard further?
Y dice la
No,
juez,
Your
yo
Honor,
ya
state submits
revisé,
on the written.
Go ahead.
yo ya revisé la recomendación de, del fiscal y el fiscal está recomendando una fianza de $3,000. Señor Poston, usted quisiera ser escuchado y dice el señor Poston, no, su señoría, nosotros ya presentamos la recomendación por escrito.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, it appears that he has no prior felony convictions.
Y la abogada que está enseguida de usted, la señorita Kelly, dice, su señoría, nosotros queremos decir que el señor no tiene antecedentes penales ni condenas previas.
He's employed and is 21 years old, so relatively young. I believe that the $1,000 bond is appropriate.
Él tiene un trabajo estable, tiene 21 años, relativamente está muy joven y por eso estamos nosotros pensando que una fianza de $1,000 sí es apropiado.
I am going to impose a $1,000 cash or secured bond. If your immigration matter gets resolved and you post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services.
Bueno, señor, sí voy a fijarle la fianza de los $1,000 en efectivo y usted va a quedar liberado bajo los servicios previos al juicio si es que se resuelve su caso de migración.
If you do get released, you are going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial directs. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms.
Y si queda liberado, señor, usted entonces debe de participar en cualquier tratamiento y monitoreo que le indique los servicios previos al juicio y no debe de consumir bebidas alcohólicas, ni drogas ilegales, ni poseer ningún arma de fuego.
You're also not allowed to have any contact with the victim of the forgery.
Y usted no puede tener ningún tipo de contacto con la víctima que sufrió la falsificación.
Do you understand all those conditions of release?
¿Le queda claro todas las condiciones de liberación, señor?
Sí.
Yes.
Your next hearing in this matter is January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. It's a preliminary hearing.
Ahora, su próxima audiencia es el 10 de enero del 2025 a la 1:30. Es una audiencia preliminar.
That hearing may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest.
Usted debe presentarse en su próxima audiencia. Quizás se lleve a cabo, quizás no, pero usted es responsable de presentarse en todas sus audiencias futuras. Si no se presenta, se puede emitir otra orden de arresto para que lo detengan.
Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
¿Usted entiende las consecuencias si no se presenta, señora, a sus audiencias?
Sí.
Yes.
We're all done for today.
Ya terminamos por el día de hoy. Gracias.
And Madam Interpreter, that's all for today for the Spanish speakers. Thank you so much and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Honor. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
¿Cuánto fue la fianza? Pero entonces llevaron el papel de todo lo que necesitó. Porque si fue, ¿dónde lo pongo? No puedo pagar, puede llamar a puede llamar a el problema es que tengo no tengo
While we're waiting, Miss Kelly, I don't know if you saw an email. I got the court received an email from OCAC today indicating that the public defender's office is going to be appointed to all 3 co-defendant cases at this time, and that the public defender's office will sort out later who it is that they're going to keep. So that's what.
Okay.
So when you hear me appoint all 3 co-defendants to the public defender's office, it's because that's the request today.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Mhm. Hi, tell me your name.
Homer Glenn Smith.
Mr. Smith, you are here today on charges of first-degree murder, armed robbery, aggravated robbery, theft of means of transportation, and arson of an occupied structure. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. Had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. There was a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court that was issued for your arrest on these charges on December 27th for offenses that occurred on December 24th of 2024. In reviewing that, so the court has reviewed the information pretrial services has provided, tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your bond in this case. They are asking for $1 million bond. That's what's on the warrant. That's the court's inclination. Mr. Poston, and again, I've read the interim, so I'm familiar with the circumstances.
State therefore submits on the written record.
Ms. Kelly,
Your Honor, he has no prior felony convictions. He's a 2 on the FTA scale. At 19 years old, he's relatively young. He's lived in Tucson for 5 years and has ties to the community. He's currently employed as well as taking GED classes, and he's connected with behavioral health through La Frontera. I'd ask that you set the bond at $500,000.
so I will note that pretrial services does say that he was arrested on December 10th for theft and burglary. He was released to pretrial on December 11th and has a preliminary hearing scheduled for December 31st. So there is that other case that is out there. I don't know how much of that may be connected to the current charges. So I'm just going to put that out there. I am going to hold Mr. Smith today on a $1 million cash bond. If you are able to post that $1 million cash bond, then you would be released to pretrial services. If you do get released to pretrial, you're to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. Do not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. You are not to go anywhere near any of the victims or their family members in this case. Have no contact with them of any kind, and do not go to any of the incident locations in this case. Do you understand those conditions of release, Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
Your next hearing is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant will issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody, the jail will transport you to your next hearing, or you'll appear via video, much like you're doing here today. But if you post the $1 million bond and get released, it's your responsibility to show up. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear, Mr. Smith? You're all done for today.
Signature.
Hi, tell me your name.
Carol Church.
Mr. Upchurch, you were here of first-degree murder, armed robbery, aggravated robbery, theft of means of transportation, and arson of an occupied structure. This is your initial appearance on those charges. We're going to set conditions of release. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this matter. It tells me a little bit about you as well as the circumstances of the offense. I will tell you, sir, it does look like, just so that you're aware, there is a warrant for you out of Wayne County, Ohio Municipal Court. It's unclear. It doesn't look like that warrant is extraditable, at least at this time, but I'm telling you that it's out there because that's information that has been provided to the court here today. It also looks like you are pending in Pima County Superior Court case CR 2024-2893, which is a separate offense to this one. In reviewing information provided by pretrial services, I've also had the chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release on this case. They are asking for $1 million bond. That is my inclination in this matter. Mr. Poston, do you need to be heard further?
Given the court's statements, the state submits on the written record.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, Mr. Upchurch has lived in Tucson for 14 years and has ties to the community. He's also currently employed. I'd ask you to set the bond at $750,000.
I am going to impose a $1 million cash bond today. If you're able to post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial services, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. You are not to have any contact with the victim or their family members in this case. Do not go anywhere near any of the incident locations for this matter. Do you understand all those conditions of release, Mr. Upchurch?
Yes.
Your next hearing date is a preliminary hearing on January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could be issued for your arrest. If you remain in custody, the jail will transport you for your next hearing, or you'll be seen via video, much like you're doing here today. If you do post the bond and get released, it is your responsibility to appear. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
You're all done for today. Hi, tell me your name.
Martin, please.
Mr. Beeman, you are here today for a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, dangerous instrument from June of this year. Looks like you failed to appear for your case management conference on that date and the warrant was issued. So that is a hold that you have on you until you appear It looks like before Judge McGinley, you're going to remain in custody regardless of what we do on other charges that you're here for today, which are possession of dangerous drugs and possession of drug paraphernalia. Those are the charges that you were arrested on. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. So we're going to talk about your conditions of release for these drug charges. I've had a chance to review information provided by pretrial services on this matter. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. Because you were on release in that other case, sir, and committed a new felony offense, the state has the ability to ask that you be held without bond at this time, pending a hearing. That does appear to be the state's recommendation. Is that right, Mr. Poston?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Beeman, what that means is that when the state asks for that, the court has to abide by the no bond request at this time. So you will be held without bond pending a hearing on January 6, 2025 at 2:30 in the afternoon. You'll be brought to court for that hearing, and there'll be an opportunity for your attorney to argue for some sort of bond on the drug charges. Again, this is a separate matter from your aggravated assault case that's pending in Superior Court. Do you understand all of that?
Sure. I had no idea anything about these charges.
Okay, well, your case management conference in Superior Court was set and you didn't appear, so that warrant was issued November, it looks like November 4th. And then obviously you're in jail now because of the drug charges. And then they
Yeah.
So I think your attorney just muted the mic, so I can't hear you. So anything you say about the new charges can be used against you. So I think that's why the attorney muted the mic. So it's best that you talk with your public defender about anything going on with your new charges. Okay, today we're just here to set conditions of release. And because of the state's request that you be held without bond, that is what the court has to do today. I don't know, Ms. Kelly, if you want to make any record.
Your Honor, it's personal use drug offenses, the new charges, but I do see the pending felony and setting the no bond hearing is the appropriate move forward. So that's the first.
All right, so the no bond hearing will come first, sir. Like I said, you'll be transported to court. They'll talk about the conditions of release at that time on your drug cases. You'll be seen separately on your aggravated assault charge. Your next hearing for the drug charges after the no bond hearing is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you have to show up for all future court dates. If you fail to appear for court dates, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear, Mr. Beeman?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you're all done for today.
Bernal, sir. Sir, there. Well, sit outside.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Orlando Bernal, ma'am. Orlando Felix Bernal, ma'am.
Mr. Bernal, you were here today on a couple of different interim complaints. One is a felony shoplifting. The other is shoplifting charge ×2, which is a class 4 felony, in addition to a misdemeanor shoplifting charge. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and your background. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release, which is what we're here to talk about today. They're asking for a $5,000 bond on each case and release.
It should be concurrent, Your Honor.
Okay, so $5,000 concurrent for both cases, and then released to pretrial services. I will note that while there is criminal history for Mr. Bernal, I'm not noting failures to appear on any of those charges. I am inclined to release him to pretrial services today in order that he not go anywhere near any of the Walmarts. Mr. Poston, I understand you want a bond. Do you want to be heard further?
Your Honor, we're looking at, in total, 7 separate documented incidents of shoplifting with north of $2,600 in total theft. It would appear the defendant is a chronic shoplifter and shows absolutely no indication that he will stop stealing without intervention by the state. If he's let out on bond, the state believes it'll just be a matter of time before he's picked up on shoplifting again. 5,000 concurrent.
Ms. Kelly?
Your Honor, he is a lifelong resident of Arizona and has ties to the state. He's currently employed and doesn't want to lose his job. I would ask the court to release him to pretrial services.
So, Mr. Bernal, I am going to release you to pretrial services today. You're going to have to stay in contact. Sir, I need you to pay attention to what I'm telling you. You have to stay in touch with pretrial services. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs while you're on release to them, and you can't have any firearms while you're on release to them. You are also not allowed to have any contact with the victims in this case. Those are the places that you've been shoplifting from. Do not go back to the incident location. Do not go to any Walmart, not just the incident location. Do not go back to any Walmart. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Your next hearing in this case is going to be January 21st, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not occur, but you are expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. The attorney sitting next to you is going to hand you a card in a second that will have that date on it, so you don't have to memorize it. Because you're going to be out of custody, you need to stay in contact with your attorney. So if that court date changes, you know that. Otherwise, they'll issue a warrant if you don't show up when you're expected to. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear, Mr. Bernal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, you are all done for today.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Adrian Christian Edinger.
Mr. Edinger, you are here today on a charge of unlawful discharge of a firearm and domestic violence aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this case. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation. They're asking for a $500,000 bond in this case. I am inclined to impose a bond in this matter, just not that high. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. It is alleged that this defendant, who admitted as much post Miranda, that whilst under the influence of various substances, while his eyes were still closed, pulled out a weapon and shot through a closed door, striking his wife. The victim was taken to the hospital in critical condition. Her status is unknown. We don't know if she's alive or dead, Your Honor. This person admitted to the height of irresponsibility when it comes to firearms and safety. He shot with his eyes closed through a door. We don't know if his wife is alive or dead. $500,000.
Ms. Kelly,
Your Honor, it appears that he has no criminal history. He's lived in Tucson for 28 years and has ties to the community. He's currently employed. He does have alternate housing. He can stay with his parents and have no contact with the victim for as long as necessary. I request that the court set the bond at $100,000.
I am going to impose a bond in this matter of $150,000. If you do post that bond, it's going to be cash or secured. If you do post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You'll be ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol, no illegal drugs, and no firearms while this case is going on. You are not to have any contact with the victim in this case. Don't go anywhere near where she is living or working under any circumstances. Do you understand all of that, Mr. Ettinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next hearing in this case is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That hearing may or may not occur, but you are expected to show up at all future hearings, and if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. If you stay in custody, the jail will transport you for your next hearing, or you'll appear via video, much like you're doing here today. If you post that bond and you get released, it's your responsibility to stay in contact with your lawyer so you know when you need to show up for court, because if you don't show up, they'll issue a warrant for you. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
You're all done for today. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, tell me your name.
Daniel Anthony Elias.
Mr. Elias, you were here today on felony charges of unlawful flight from a law enforcement vehicle and the possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I am going to appoint the legal advocate's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. She won't be your attorney, but she'll be representing you as we discuss conditions of release here today. I've had the chance to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and your history. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. It looks like they are requesting you be released to pretrial services, and that is the court's inclination. Do you need to be heard further, Mr. Poston?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Kelly?
No, thank you.
So, Mr. Elias, you're going to be released today to the custody of pretrial services. That means you have to stay in contact with that agency as they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol. You can't have illegal drugs and no firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next hearing date is going to be January 21st, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates or a warrant could issue for your arrest. Since you're going to be out of custody, that means it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney at the legal advocate's office. So if any court dates change, you know about them. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today.
Thank you. You ready?
Hi, tell me your full name.
Randy Landmark.
Sir, you are here today on a few different matters. You have a felony matter of unlawful flight from law enforcement, and then you have misdemeanor matters involving a DUI and drug paraphernalia. Looks like you also have some outstanding matters from Tucson City Court that you have not taken care of as well. Actually, I guess there's another pending case for reckless driving, resisting arrest, failing to stop, exceeding speed. Looks like you have an arraignment scheduled on January 30th of 2025 in that case. And then another DUI and a resisting arrest and disorderly conduct. Okay, so we're going to consolidate all of your city court matters today into one case. I'll talk with you about your conditions of release on those in a second. You have the right to remain silent on all of these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. As to the felony matter, I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and your history. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $1,500 bond at this time and release to pretrial services. Mr. Postman.
State submits.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, no objection to the state's request.
So I am going to impose a bond in this matter of $1,500. That's going to be a cash or secured bond. If you're able to post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You are to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. This is alcohol related. They very likely will make you do alcohol monitoring. If you get released, you're required to participate. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol, no illegal drugs, no firearms while this case is going on, and you are not to drive without a valid license. For your felony matter, sir, do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes.
You do understand all those conditions of release?
Yes.
All right. Your next hearing on the felony matter is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be expected to show up at all future court dates or a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that? Now we need to talk about your city court cases. All of them are going to be consolidated. On your new charges, this is the time for your arraignment as well as your initial appearance. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf. I am going to impose a bond on the city court case. That's going to be a $500 cash bond on that matter. I am going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. Your next hearing in that case is going to be a video review hearing on January 10th, 2025 at 1:45 in the afternoon. That is going to be in front of Judge Cranshaw at Tucson City Court. If you are still in custody, you'll appear via video, much like you're doing here today on all of these matters. If you,
Your Honor,
yes,
that's 15 minutes after the preliminary hearing in Superior Court in a different courthouse. Is it possible to have a different time for the city court matter?
no, I'm not really worried about the preliminary hearing date given this particular case. So I doubt, Ms. Kelly, that that will be the date that he will have to appear in that case. If for some reason that happens, I'm sure the public defender's office can work with the county attorney's office, but it'll be a video review hearing. If, like I said, if it does go preliminary hearing and you think that's going to be an issue, then you can contact the state and work something out. I don't anticipate that becoming a conflict. So video review hearing, January 10th, 2025 at 1:45 in the afternoon. If you do post that bond and get released, you're to possess or consume no alcohol or illegal drugs. Do not drive without a valid license. There is a reckless burning charge. I'm going to order that you not go near any of the incident locations for the Tucson City Court case. Do you understand your conditions in the city court case, sir?
Yes.
And if you fail to appear for that video review hearing, and again, if you're in custody, you'll appear via video. If you post bond and you get released, you're going to need to show up at Tucson City Court. Do I give him the different date for that one? Yeah. So if for some reason you post bond, sir, and you get released, then your hearing date is going to be January 31st, 2025 at 9 a.m. So if you're in custody, January 10th, if you post bond, it's January 31st at 9 a.m. and that will be on all of those charges. If you don't appear, they'll issue a warrant for you. They could also go forward in your absence with that hearing and any subsequently hearings they set, including a trial. If the trial goes forward in your absence and you're convicted and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could also lose your right to an appeal for that matter. Do you understand all the consequences if you fail to appear? You're all done for today.
Look.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Fabian Hook.
Mr. Hook, you were here today on charges of domestic violence, disorderly conduct, criminal damage, assault, and disorderly conduct. The first two charges are Class 6 felonies. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. The court has had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services in this matter. I've also had a chance to review the intimate partner risk assessment that was provided, and the court is taking that into consideration as to conditions of release. Mr. Hook, that's what we're here to talk about today, is your conditions of release. The state is asking for a $2,500 bond and release to pretrial. Mr. Poston.
Your Honor, state submits on the written record to include the Form 4C.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, it appears that he has no criminal history. He's currently employed full-time. I'd ask that the court set the bond at $500.
Mr. Hook, I'm actually going to release you to pretrial services today. Here's the thing, you're not going to be allowed to return back to the incident location. So are you living there?
Currently, yeah. But I also have another place I can stay.
Yeah, you're going to have to establish an alternate address. You're not allowed to go back there. Pretrial services was not allowed to get a hold of the victims in this case. And so what that tells me is that, well, what I'm going to do at this time is say that you can't have any contact with them. and that you have to establish an alternate address until something changes from some other judge. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you have to stay in contact with pretrial services. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. No firearms while this case is going on. And as I've said, no contact with the, do not go near where they're living or working or the incident location. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's as to both victims. It does look like your significant other, Miss Kindley, and then your stepfather, Mr. Jones. Are we clear on that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Your next hearing in this case is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're going to be expected to show up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Because you're going to be out of custody, it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney, because if you get a new court date and it changes, you're responsible for knowing that. And if you don't show up, they'll issue a warrant. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Hook.
Thank you.
Mhm. Hi, tell me your name.
Jeffrey McIntyre.
Mr. McIntyre, you were here today on charge of narcotics possession. You do have the right to remain silent on that charge. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've reviewed information provided by pretrial services. What they tell me, sir, is that you do have a hold from the Department of Corrections. So regardless of what we do here today, you're going to continue to be held until your DOC matter is resolved. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So in light of the hold, I know the state's recommendation was $1,000. The court was going to do a $500 cash for secured bond released to pretrial services. He is eligible for SMART. I can give him a SMART court date. I'm just not sure how that's going to work with the DOC hold. So, Mr. Poston, do you want to be heard?
Your Honor, the 500 be fine, and I agree with the court's assessment that SMART may be not a viable option given the fact that we're looking at a DOC and probation holding maybe return to custody, making SMART not feasible.
I'm inclined to give him the hearing date and just see what happens with it and see what can be sorted out. I'm not sure what the DOC hold will yield. Any objection to
Fair enough,
the
Your Honor.
review?
No.
Okay, we can always be told later. So, sir, what that means is you could potentially be eligible to participate in a diversion program on this new felony drug charge. The complication is going to be your DOC hold. The diversion type program essentially means that if you agree to participate in treatment, drug treatment, either inpatient or outpatient treatment, if you successfully complete that, stay in contact with pretrial services, then the state would not go forward with the felony drug charge. So essentially it would be dismissed and you wouldn't have to deal with that. Again, I don't know if you're going to be eligible because of the DOC hold, but I can give you a court hearing date for that. That'll be next week. The jail will transport you to that hearing if you are eligible. That's actually going to be in front of me. I'm Judge Miller. It'll be in Pima County Superior Court on the 3rd floor. If you're not eligible, you just won't be transported for that hearing. So is that something you'd like to participate in? If I can get that DOC hold? Okay, all right. So that hearing date's going to be January 7th, 2025 at 9. And again, if you're in custody, and I'm sure you will be, then you'll be transported for that hearing if you're eligible to participate. The hearing after that on the drug charge is January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. So if you get released, you have to stay in contact with your attorney so you know about court dates. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So just so we're clear, I am implementing a $500 cash or secured bond released to pretrial services if your DOC hold gets lifted. You have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. Do you understand all those conditions? All right, you're all done today, and I might see you next week.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Yeah, Joseph Senior.
Mr. Osef, you are here today on charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It looks like they're telling me that you are on probation for an aggravated DUI case. Jail, are you showing any kind of hold out of Maricopa?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I've also had a chance, in addition to reviewing the pretrial services information, to review information provided by the state. It looks like their request for conditions of release is a $10,000 bond. Mr. Poston?
Your Honor, this individual is alleged to have absolutely unprovoked slashed another passenger aboard a Suntran bus with a box cutter. Your Honor, based on that and his criminal history, this individual is a danger to the community, and therefore a $10,000 bond is appropriate.
Ms. Kelly?
Your Honor, he's lived in Tucson for 2 years and has ties to the community. He's also currently employed and would like to keep his job. I'd ask you to set the bond at $3,000.
I'm going to impose a $5,000 cash or secured bond on this case. If you do post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You cannot have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you cannot have any firearms or weapons on your person. Do not have any contact with the victim in this case, and do not go back to the incident location. I understand that may be bus lines or on a bus. You are not to be on a bus. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Yes.
Your next hearing in this case is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. If you remain in custody, the jail will make sure to transport you to your next hearing, or you'll appear via video like you are today. If you get released, it's your responsibility to stay in contact with your attorney so that you're aware of all future court dates. If you do not appear, they will issue a warrant. Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
Okay, you're all done.
Funds. See.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Louis Science.
Mr. Sines, you were here today on a charge of domestic violence aggravated assault and domestic violence aggravated assault impeding the airway. So 2 separate charges. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on this matter. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and your history. Also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $50,000 bond. We're also going to need to talk about a city court matter, sir, involving a false reporting to law enforcement. On that charge, this is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment. You are presumed innocent, and I'm going to enter a not guilty plea on your behalf for that charge. Mr. Poston.
Your Honor, in this matter, the defendant is alleged to have attacked his what appear to be domestic partner. Defendant is 25, victim apparently is 17, so we're talking about a minor. During the course of an argument, the defendant threw a phone at the victim, causing a 2-inch laceration on the defendant's forehead, requiring sutures and other medical treatment. Defendant then took the victim to the ground, and in the course of what looks to be a fairly severe beating, strangled him. The victim was noted to have bruising all over his body, bruising on his throat, and a laceration to his forehead, which again requires sutures. The state need not remind the court of the very concerning statistics when it comes to strangulation. $50,000, Your Honor. This man presents a clear and present risk to the victim and the community. Thank you.
Ms. Kelly.
Your Honor, it appears that he has no criminal history. He's a lifelong resident of Tucson and has ties to the community. He's currently employed. His mother can provide him with transportation to court. I'd ask you to set the bond at $15,000.
I am going to impose a bond of $25,000. That is a cash or secured bond. If you're able to post that bond, Mr. Sines, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial services, you are required to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms or weapons. You are not allowed to have any contact with the victim in this case or her family. She's 17, so don't have any contact with her or her parents or anyone who is her family member. You are also not to return to the incident location. Your no contact order with this victim applies while you remain in custody as well. So you may be given access to phones, tablets, other things. You are not to have any contact with her at all. Do you understand all those conditions of release? Your next hearing on the felony matter is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you'll be expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody, the jail is going to transport you to future hearings, or you'll appear via video like you're doing right now. But if you post your bond and you get released, you're expected to stay in contact with your attorney so that you're aware of any court date changes. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. As to the Tucson City Court case, I am going to release you on that matter. You're going to be set for a non-transport review hearing on February 7th, 2025 at 9 a.m. And that will be in front of Judge Hale. If you are in custody, then you will appear via video for that non-transport review hearing. If you are out of custody and you post bond, you are expected to show up for that hearing yourself at Tucson City Court. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you fail to appear for your city court hearing, not only could they issue a warrant for your arrest, but they could also go forward with that hearing in your absence. They could set subsequent hearings, including a trial. And if you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could lose your right to appeal that case. Do you understand all of those consequences if you fail to appear in your city court matter?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're all done for today.
Thank you. Gracias.
Hi, tell me your name.
Jessica Sanchez.
Ms. Sanchez, you are here today on a charge of theft of means of transportation. It is a felony offense. You do have the right to remain silent. It's against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and your history. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They're asking for a $7,500 bond in this matter. I do note that she does have criminal history, but it looks like the last one was an out-of-state matter from 2012. I don't note anything since then. I am inclined to release Ms. Sanchez to pretrial services today with no contact with the victim or returning to the incident location. Mr. Poston, I see that you're asking for a $7,500 bond. Do you want to be heard?
Your Honor, she may be rating only a 4 out of 6, 3 out of 6, but she's only been in Tucson for 2 weeks. She's a flight risk in the state's opinion. These are not strong ties. This is a person who can easily flee and not leave anything behind. She has a very extensive history of vehicle theft, notwithstanding the dates, but we're looking also at past priors for DUI and drugs. Not only is this person has a history of what she's been accused of anew, but she's also a huge flight risk. 7,500.
Ms. Kelly, she's going to need to stay here, obviously, while this case is going on or until there's some further order of the court. So if you could address that, if you need a moment to talk with her.
Your Honor, she indicates that she does have family here in Tucson, so she would be able to stay with them while this case is pending. And then, as the court noted, her last felony is from 2012, so she's been doing well for quite some time. I'd ask the court to release her pretrial services.
So, Ms. Sanchez, I am going to release you to pretrial services. You're going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or legal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. You're not to have any contact with the victims and do not go back to the incident location. You do have to remain in Pima County while this case is pending. Do you understand all of those conditions?
I do understand, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be January 21st, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant will issue for your arrest. Because you're going to be out of custody, it's really important that you stay in contact with your attorney, because if the court date changes, you need to know when that is, or they'll issue a warrant for you. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Can you explain to me when I get a public defender or how?
You have
Through pretrial services or?
you have a public defender now. So
Okay.
Ms. Kelly, the person seated next to you, is an attorney from the
Okay.
public defender's office. She probably won't be your attorney, but someone from the public defender's office will be in touch, or she'll give you a card and let you know who to call. You also will they'll give you information about how to stay in touch with pretrial services. So when you get released today, make sure pretrial services has your address and phone number so they know how to contact you, okay?
Okay, Your Honor. Thank
All right.
you.
You're all done for today.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, we are done. Thank you all for your help today. I hope you all have a great new year.